Mike White here. How are you? And I am really glad that we're sitting here with the 10th session so that we can talk about something that's going to be really important. And I do this one last, and some people have actually told me that they would kind of hope that maybe this one could be first, and I've toyed with that a lot. But I think the first 9 leading into this part becomes critical because you get to see how all those pieces come together, and managing your communications is what's going to give you your time to move this thing forward and do the things effectively so that you have the time in your day to get your work done and get all the things that you want to do done and complete in a manageable way. I want to first review the homework and just remind you that you should have answered the questions on what kind of databasing system that you're planning to use, whether it be integrated with your operations system in your loan officer software, or it's electronic, or it's paper. It doesn't much matter how the system is as long as you have one and you know what the plan is for it. You also need to have an ongoing plan on how you're going to fill it and measure that on a regular basis. Have goals for how many new people you're going to put into your database each week, each month, each quarter, and then track yourself to make sure that you're filling your database and understand how it grows, whether it's people that you're coming in direct contact with for a mortgage-related topic, or it's somebody who is a referral partner, or somebody who's going to be part of your group to do trainings and seminars, or a go-to person for answers to questions outside the mortgage field. At the end of the day, your database needs to grow, and it's a constant process. You also want to make sure that you're scheduling time to do the work, and that's why we go back to the referral triangle, and we talk about, your database is an integral part of the 3 pieces of the puzzle. Your database should grow over time, so it's producing between 70 and 80% of your total business. It's not how it starts, but that's how it'll end up down the road. The other part of the question is with having this database, what kind of value are you going to provide for your people, making sure that you have set up something where everything you're sending them is not just mortgage-related items. While some of those things are very helpful and you and I can be excited about those, the average person doesn't relate to their mortgage that consistently. That once a year directly talking about their mortgage is often enough for people, but you want to communicate with them on an ongoing basis, so sometimes things, providing different types of value to them that are not mortgage specific but encompasses other area of their lives, will not only ensure that they open up your communications when necessary, but will also give you the ability to grow your database as other people get added to it because they've been passed along some of the value that you've sent your people. And last but not least is how you're going to get the value that you're providing to them. Are you going to do it electronically? Are you going to do it with video? Are you going to do it with physical coupons? The reality of it is it doesn't much matter how you do it. It matters that you do it. So it is a very important part that we came out of last week, and I wanted to make sure we just paid a little more attention to it going into this week because it is something that is critical and needs to be done in setting up this last stage, because everything leads to that database. Everything leads to communication. And hopefully when you get through this part, you will have a plan going forward on how to make sure that you're doing everything that you want to be doing and that you're doing more business in less time. And the fastest way to make sure that that happens is by being able to manage your communications. So let's start out with what I consider to be the topic here is the baseline. And say we can't even begin to manage communications if we're always in reactive mode. And that's how most of us operate, is the phone rings or an email comes in or a text comes across, and absolutely in 100% reactive mode. And the challenge with that is first of all, when you're in reactive mode, then people come to expect that you're going to be reactive to them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and let's be honest, that's not possible. It's not possible for you specifically to instantaneously answer every question or respond to every inquiry 24/7 personally. It doesn't mean that you can't set up systems that handle it, that things can't be automated, but the reality of this is nobody needs to be working on their business 24/7 because it is just not possible. There are always going to be circumstances where you're going to be engaged in something that you can't be disturbed from, and it's just a matter of drawing the guidelines as to what that is and when that is, because the only way that we're going to get out of this reactive mode, the only way that we're going to get into a spot where we can be proactive is to find a way to balance all these things in our lives by getting better and more effective at our communication. Because we have to place some limits on what that means. Those of you who are coaching with me and know that you can email me anytime and I will get back to you via email. You also know that picking up the phone and calling me is probably something that's not going to yield a whole great deal of success because you know from us having been together, I don't answer the telephone. So while you can call and you could leave a message, I will respond to and speak to you if necessary sooner because I check my email far more frequently than I ever do check my voicemails. That's because I tell people, if you want to reach out and you want to communicate with me, the fastest and best way to do that is to send me an email and explain to me what your issue is so that I can respond to it. I do that because my business requires that I do that. I have appointments scheduled throughout the day, and I am not in a position where I can just drop what I'm doing to answer an inquiry or to get involved in a long discussion about something because I have clients who are already here that need my attention, just like your clients and your referral partners need yours. It becomes a balance, and that the way we get that balance is to become more effective with the communication by explaining to people how we're going to conduct and manage our communications and showing them what will work best. Now, there are 7 basic areas that I put out there so that you get a feel for what I'm talking about. You may add or subtract this number, but I'll give you the 7 basic ideas that I put out there and say, you've got to be able to control your phone and your email. We've talked about setting up a daily reminder to yourself on your voicemail, on your phone, exactly what today is and exactly when you'll be returning calls, so that when people call in, they know exactly when you're going to be able to reach them or when they might expect your return phone call. You can do the same thing with your email. You can set up an autoresponder that tells them when you're going to reply, or you can explain to the people up front that there are certain times of the day that you respond to your email. Email doesn't have to be instant communication. You can respond to an email an hour, 2, or 3 after it's been sent to you. They do not expire, but you do need to have a plan. You also are required to tell people and to share with people the best ways to communicate with you. I've explained to my people that the best way to communicate with me is through email. Explain to me what the challenge is, not just say, I need to speak with you, but explain to me what the challenge is. Sometimes I can respond and resolve the issue with a simple email, and sometimes based upon what you've said, it's going to require a more in-depth conversation, and rather than send back dozens of emails trying to resolve an issue, I'd rather take a simple phone call and resolve the issue together. The other thing that you need to really do is to make sure that you have goals for each communication. In other words, what's the reason I'm communicating with this person? Am I calling these people to ask them for business? Am I calling to follow up with something? You need to have a clear goal before you ever pick up the phone that says, this is the reason that I'm calling. You'd be amazed at the number of people who start out calling somebody for one reason, have an entire conversation with them, only to hang up the phone and never get clear what it was their original reason for calling in the first place. They get sidetracked by a number of different things. So one of the ways to resolve that issue, to prevent being sidetracked, is to have a goal for each communication. And if you have to write it down before you make the call, then write it down on a piece of paper in front of you on a legal pad and say, I'm calling Mr. and Mrs. Jones and we're going to discuss their appraisal, or whatever the case may be. Fourth on this list is to make sure that you set time limits for each interaction. Start the communication or the interaction off with exactly how long you're intending this to take. Something like, hi, Mr. Smith, I only have a few minutes, but I did want to speak to you about your appraisal. The appraisal came back. Everything is fine. I'm going to send you a copy via email. There'll be nothing in here that we have an issue with, but I just wanted to touch base with you and let you know that that was coming. If you have any questions, please let me know. When you start the conversation off with exactly how much time that you have or how much time you intend the conversation to be, it prevents you getting dragged into long, drawn-out conversations about things that are not specifically important to this particular time frame. You also need to understand the power of each form of communication. And few people really take to heart the power of each one of these communications. And clearly, that is something that is not taught all that frequently, and I wish it were, because we've gotten way too dependent on simple email. And sometimes, I think clients of mine hide behind email as opposed to getting out in front and speaking to people. You've got to understand that the best form of communication that there is face-to-face. In lieu of face-to-face, then live over the phone will work. The next most important form of communication is going to be physical mail, a physical note, a physical letter. And last but not least, texting and email. It's the least effective form of communication because they're marginalized. Now, I'm not saying that texting or email is a bad thing. What I'm saying is it can't be the only thing. You should try to set in your mind that texting or email should be in support of and in addition to other forms of communication. Because if you have a verbal phone call with somebody and you explain something to them, I have no problem with you sending them a text or an email confirming what it was that you just discussed. Mr. Jones, great to speak with you today. As per our discussion, I will expect that you have that pay stub for me in my office by 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon. What it does is it confirms in writing what it was that you spoke to, so that if that is not the way that that other party took that conversation to go, that they can respond saying, well, I didn't say I would have it by 2 o'clock on Friday, or I didn't know I needed to get the pay stub. The reality of it is each form of the communication has a certain degree of power. You also need to be aware of your internet strategies. And what I'm saying by that is can you direct people to your website? And does your website respond to them and provide for them information that they can readily use when you're not available? Do you have a frequently asked questions tab? Can they fill out an application online? I have some people that have very elaborate websites with very interactive materials on them, some using webinars, some of them using video. Imagine if you had videos recorded for your own frequently asked questions, you could be explaining the process. I've got one client who's currently working on a video that walks through the mortgage application online so that the person is sitting there walking them through the application. The thing here is some of that's more elaborate than you're ever going to need, but the reality of it is it's whatever you're comfortable with. The same holds true for automated systems. Having a great deal of information online, general information, non-transactional specific information, available through an automated service, whether it be explaining appraisals or explaining the loan process or explaining certain things along the way generically, can go a long way, because your customers sometimes will seek those out, and they will be very happy to get the information that they want, because they don't need the answer from you directly, they just needed an answer. So understand that these are the basic areas, because it's really important that we understand the difference between proactive and reactive management in our lives. Now, sometimes more is more, and I say that because having a strategy for what you're doing and how you do it and providing information is a very important thing. And sometimes having it clear and having automated systems and having a way to go out and reach you can certainly be a benefit. But here's a tale that I want to share with you, and it's a specific story. Now, it goes back some time, and you're going to laugh at a couple of the different things that I bring up, but you can relate it to current technology. It goes back to when I was running a team of people, and this person was one of those people that was highly technologically advanced, this loan officer I had. And this loan officer had a business card, and on his business card, because he wanted to be accessible, so on his business card it had his office phone number. It had his car phone number. It had his home office number. It had his pager number. Can you imagine? And going back to when we had pagers and all those wonderful things. But he wanted to make sure that he showed people that he was accessible, that you could find him. And I'll never forget this, and it was probably one of the more important lessons that I ever had to learn, and that I was able to share with another loan officer, because it brought out a point. And so as it turns out, this loan officer had a closing on a Monday morning first thing. And so as it was, he had to go to this particular building where the closing was going to take place. And the closing was supposed to be at 9 o'clock in the morning, and he went to this building, and the closing was in the basement of this building, and any of us knew if you were in this building, you couldn't get through. You weren't going to get a cell phone signal or a pager signal. Nothing was going to happen. You were pretty much cut off from the world when you went into this building and down into that basement. So he got to the closing about 10 minutes early, and off he went into the building for his closing. Well, right after 9 o'clock, this young lady who was out seeing property over the weekend and was working with one of my loan officer's agents had come across a property that she was interested in buying. And the agent referred her to my loan officer for a pre-approval so that she could present the offer. And she told that client that it would be, a good idea to get that done and get the pre-approval over to her by noon, so that she could make the offer before other offers or many other offers came in on that property, because other people had seen the house over the weekend. So she waited until 9 o'clock in the morning, and she went to the first line on the business card, and it said his office number. So she called the office number and dialed the extension and told the loan officer and left him a message about how she had been out that weekend looking at property and that she had wanted to make an offer on the property but needed a pre-approval, and, could he help her? Well, after she hung up the phone with that message, she went to the next line, which was his car phone number, and left pretty much the same message, and then called his home office number and left that message, and then got to the last thing, which was his pager, and dialed the pager up and left her phone number. Now, that took about 5 or 10 minutes to do, and she sat there waiting for this loan officer to call her back. Well, you and I both know that waiting is not easy for anybody. And if you've made those phone calls and you're waiting to call somebody back, every minute seems like an hour. Well, about 20 minutes passed and she couldn't take it anymore. She started the process again and made a second round of phone calls. And then about 20 minutes after that, she made the third round of phone calls. Well, at a little bit after 10 o'clock in the morning, she finally decided to call into the office line and hit 0 for the receptionist, and was literally frantic on the phone. And my receptionist, being a quality receptionist and understanding that you never let a customer in that degree of being upset go without getting them somebody to talk to, she knew she had to get them in touch with somebody, and she knew I was in the office. And she put the woman on hold for a minute, promising that she would be right back to her. She came down the hallway and told me that she had this woman on the line. So I told her to send me over the call, and the woman got on the phone, and she was on the verge of being hysterical, that she was going to lose this house, and that she had called my loan officer more than a dozen times, and he hadn't returned her phone calls, and she was really upset. So I calmed her down as best I could and told her I'd be happy to work with her, and I walked her through the process. And not only did I walk her through the process, I started to collect some information. I knew who the agent was. I had a relationship with that agent. I had met that agent a number of times. And I explained to the woman that what I was going to do and how I was going to handle it. And after I had done that, I was on the line with her, and I pulled the credit, saw her credit was fine. And back then, in those days, we were also able to do limited or no doc loans. So I knew, based upon her credit and the assets that she had claimed to have, that she was going to be okay and that we'd be able to make this deal work. So I explained to her that as soon as I got off the phone with her, I would, she needed to collect the information that I asked her to collect and bring it to my office, and that I would call the agent, and that if she collected the information and came to my office and it verified everything that she told me, which I had no doubt that it would, that I would be calling the agent and letting them know that I would be issuing the pre-approval so she could make the offer on the home. And with that, she calmed down. I gave her task list and told her what documents I needed and got her started on that. And then here's what happened. I called the agent. The agent was fine. I told her what was going on. She said there was no problem. And the woman came to the office with all her materials about an hour later, and sure, everything worked out. We completed the application. But in the intern, the loan officer had completed his closing, and he was on his way back to the office, and he could see that he had a number of pages from this number, and he had, he started to check his mail, and he had a number of phone calls at his office and a number of phone calls at our office. And indeed, this woman had called and reached out to him, more than a dozen times, because she had called the 4 numbers more than 3 times trying to reach him. And so as she was leaving, unbeknownst to the loan officer and to her, the loan officer came in, and I saw him, and I sat him down, and I had the conversation, and I said, here's the problem. I said, you know how on your business card you have all these things? I said, the woman who just left here that you just passed is the woman leaving all those messages for you. They started out quite calm and got more frantic as the day went on. And in 1 hour, that woman went from calm potential client to a person who was in fear of losing the house that she so desperately wanted, and she was angry. And so what I explained to him is because he didn't leave a message on his voicemail, because he didn't tell people how he was going to return the conversation. Because he had 4 phone numbers on his business card, he didn't help the customer reach him. He only frustrated the customer. It only drove that customer crazy, having all those ways supposedly to reach somebody without being able to reach them. And not only that, but now that loan officer, he had to sit and listen to 3 or 4 messages at home and 3 or 4 messages in the office and clear those messages off his pager. It wasn't helpful because it was taking him even more time. And that's when I decided, okay, that in this particular situation, more isn't more. Okay, more can only lead to more frustration and anxiety. So here are the lessons that we learned from that. That loan officer had created a false sense of reality. By placing all those numbers on that card, that loan officer was convinced that those people would find him and they would be happy knowing that he was reachable. Unfortunately, what he found out also is it served as an unlimited distraction and redundant frustration to the people trying to communicate with him because they'd no sooner hang up with one form of communication and go to the next one. And my thought is that having multiple phone numbers or email addresses only serves to confuse people. I'm a firm believer that you need to have one place to be contacted on your business card. Give me a phone number, give me an email address, or give me a website, and have me be able to find that. Giving me multiple choices doesn't help me. It only serves to frustrate me. If you control your phone message and your email, you're not spending time playing phone tag. You're not spending time clearing messages off of multiple sources. So if you tell people, and as I've suggested to all of you, that every day you change your recorded message and let them know, hi, this is Michael White. Today is Wednesday, April the 17th. I have meetings and appointments scheduled throughout the day. I will be returning phone calls between 9 and 10, 1 and 2, and 4 and 5. Please leave your name, your number, and which one of those times is most convenient for me to return your call, and I'll be happy to do it then. If none of those options work for you, please leave me 3 times tomorrow. That will work for you, and I will be happy to confirm with you which one of those times, and we will have that appointment at that time tomorrow. Well, what does that do? It clarifies the mission. People will know when you'll be returning a call. And if those call times are not convenient to them, when will be a convenient time for you to reach them? Because answering the phone is an $8 to $12 an hour task in most markets. That's not what any of you have put down as your hourly earning rate that you'd like to make. Most of you want to make $50, $100 an hour or more. How is answering a telephone a task that can be easily accomplished by somebody who we can pay $8 to $12 an hour to? Those are the lessons learned. The realities is that productivity declines with each interruption. We've talked about this in the past. The fact that people who are constantly being interrupted have to go back and refocus. That starting and stopping is brutal. We also know that if you share your communication philosophy with your clients and your referral partners, they'll very easily accept and understand. Because you know and I know, if I have a referral partner and they say, well, I want to be able to reach you 24/7. I said, so you want me sitting down with one of your clients and in the middle of doing their loan application, you want me to stop and answer your phone call? And I said, well, of course not. I don't want you to do that. I said, well, then how do I do that? It's not possible. We need to have a plan. You also need to have clear goals for each communication, and you need to create discipline. Turn off the phone. Turn off your email buzzer. Turn it off. It's not good enough for it to be silent. You can still feel it vibrate. Stop it. The reality of it is you cannot be highly productive if you're going to get interrupted all the time. Yeah, you can close 3 or 4 loans a month that way, but you'll never get much better than that, and you'll always be looking over your shoulder or running around frazzled trying to figure out what to do next. So the point here is does your perception meet your reality? What you perceive your business to be, is that what you're conveying to your people? Are they aware of your plan? When you say you'll be returning phone calls at certain times, do you return them? How disciplined are you with your schedule? Because the reality of it is the more disciplined you become to your schedule, the more professional people will treat you. Now let me give you some tricks here and some tips that I use myself and I share with a lot of other mortgage professionals. Is that you need to have a commitment for your follow-up actions and a timeline for success. In other words, you need to know the outcome before you ever get started here. You need to be prepared for how things are going to work. You get on the phone with an inbound phone call and you spend 20 minutes on the phone with somebody and you don't get a commitment for them to give you documentation or to pull credit or a combination of those two, and that's a colossal waste of time. You need to limit those initial conversations to as small a period of time as possible so that you always have the position to be asking for information so that you can proceed. Having a theoretical conversation with somebody about what might be possible with their mortgage doesn't do anybody any good. You're going to need the facts. Limit your initial conversations to 10 minutes or so before you get them to conform and give you information so that you can proceed forward. You need to plan these conversations before you have them and master the art of managing the conversation, because the person who's asking the questions is the person that's in control of that conversation. You need to be asking the questions because you're the one with superior information. So you need to know how these work. You also need to go back to how the workflow goes and understand that when somebody comes to you, they come to you as a suspect. All you can do is collect enough information so that you can pull credit and review documentation to offer them price, product, and program and make them a prospect. It's all you can do. Spending more than 10 minutes on the phone and 20 minutes looking at some documentation is a waste of your time until they've committed to move forward. Once you've shared information, you can have another conversation with them about the price, product, and program you can offer. That can be a longer conversation. That can be 20 minutes to a half hour. And that can be the point where they decide to become an applicant. And then understand during that application process, what am I going to do once that client closes? What database do they go in? What information do they get from me, keeping them in the loop? Now, I understand you're going to get some clients that are not going to be happy. They're going to want all the answers to all these questions without giving you any information about, oh, my credit is fine. I've got 800 credit scores and I make plenty of money. Well, that may be true, but it also may not be true. And the only way you're going to know what they really have is to gain their commitment before moving forward. You know, the law of SW comes into play here. When you have your system for both your clients and your referral partners, and how you do your business, and how you do the things that you do, you will understand the law of SW that says some people will do it the way you want, some people won't do it the way you want. So what if they won't? Someone is waiting
no problem.
Somebody wants to do that.
We charge
Somebody wants to have a structure. Somebody wants to have a system.
Oh.
You have to learn how to do that. You have to learn how to control. You have to take control of your communications. Okay? You have to be able to function. And if you can't function within the rules of your own process, then other people are going to control your process, and that's going to drive you crazy. So understand some basic things here. There are three types of conversations that you can have with people. There's the contact call, the communication call, and the consultation call. Know each one before you do it. The contact phone call, 30 seconds to 3 minutes. That you're just going to call, you're going to cover a brief item, and you're going to move on, or you're going to leave a voicemail. The communication, the 5 to 15-minute call, could be covering different types of loan products, could be reviewing an issue or a challenge. The consultation is when you're going to work through the process or you're actually going to take the application. These things gives you a time frame. Some of you will work faster than others. Some of you will take longer than others. I only put this up there to give you a basic time frame, just so that you can make sure. Again, the contact or the touch call, it's made to leave a message or schedule one of the other forms of contact. It gives you something like a specific objective depending on what it is you're doing. Hi, Mr. Smith, I just wanted to touch base with you and schedule an appointment to review your application. Hi, Mr. Smith, I just have a couple of minutes before my next closing, and I wanted to see if we could set up an appointment to review your next application. Give you an idea of how you phrase and how you convey the fact that this is not going to be a long phone call. The consultation call, again, you're going to share a price or a product and a program. You're going to do that consultation. You're going to answer all the questions until the client has the information that makes them happy and they're clear in making a choice. This is where you're going to go through the application process and all the things the client can expect to happen during the course of your conversation. If you don't do these things, then you're not laying these things out in front of the client. You have to set the expectation. Again, time frame for these calls. When you get a new suspect, somebody you've never spoke to before, I suggest that you don't speak to them any more than 15 minutes. If they're not committed to giving you information so that you can pull credit or sending you a documentation, there's no reason to have any more of a call than that, because you're only speaking in theory. It's sort of like asking the question, what's the temperature in the United States today? You have to be a little more specific so that you can give a little more specific answer. A prospect call can take 15 to 30 minutes. That's when you're moving them, you're sharing terms, conditions, price, product, and program. Reviewing the documentation list and the application process should take you no longer than 45 minutes. If you've done the steps right coming up here. And then the follow-up process should take no longer than a series of 30-second to 3-minute conversations along the way. I mean, great customer service, if you're speaking with that customer, means you shouldn't take you more than 2 hours of communications with that customer from start to finish. Again, I don't know if any of you track this. I don't know if any of you look at this. But I feel it's important to have it in writing out in front of you, because this is what, when you look at the people who are highly successful, who do large numbers of loans, who are not working 24/7, these are some of the common themes that you'll see with them so that they can get more work done in less time. And again, the power of each form of communication, that face-to-face meeting will always be the best form of communication. The personal phone call, that's important. It's the next best thing to a face-to-face meeting. Once you've got somebody pre-approved, you had better make sure that you're speaking to them. if you're not speaking to them once a week, you're missing an opportunity to make sure that they're looking for property, and you're also missing an opportunity to keep them in the fold. Because if you don't show that it's important by calling them every week, they're not going to think the relationship is important to you, and they can go with just anybody else. The U.S. mail, a thank you card, a birthday card, holiday cards, a short personal note is far better than just some flyer or email that they get. Take the time to make the touches important. You know, in business, absence doesn't make the heart grow fonder. It just opens the door for somebody to take your business away from you. I don't care how great you think the relationship is. I don't care how much you think they love you. The reality of this is that you need to stay in communication with your people. Have a predetermined schedule by what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Because the when, and I've talked to you about this before, always have the next thing scheduled. Always make sure that you know what happens next. Now, things that we've talked about, what should be on your website, because again, we want people to be able to download information or get information when you're not capable of taking that right off the bat. And also, it's because some people never want to speak to a human being. There's an increasing number of younger people who want to know about you to see how relevant you are. They want to see what you have to offer and how you relate long before they're ever going to call you. These people are going to do their research, and the information that you have on your website is one of the things that they're going to be able to do to find out about you. It also could be Facebook. It could also be LinkedIn. Those areas are critically important to be engaged with in some way or another. And whether you're offering free reports or sample documents or showing what a sample closing package looks like, putting the names and addresses of your referral partners and your service and product providers on there, your endorsements, all of those things can be valuable to you to be on there and invaluable for your customers to see. Again, we may not all have that now. It may be something that we're working toward. But the thing is you have to have a plan, because without a plan, you're not going to be able to execute. You know, the two best and most effective forms of communication are free. It costs you nothing to show up and be nice to somebody and talk to them. It costs you nothing to pick up the phone and make a phone call and speak to somebody directly. Those two are free to do. Now, I understand that email is free, but they're not as effective as the other two. Again, email and texting, they are to be in support. We've got to control your phone and your email. We've got to share the best ways to communicate. I want you to have a goal for each communication. You also need to set yourself limits for the amount of time you're going to spend in each interaction with the next person. You have to be relevant in your mind, and you have to be clear about the power of each form of communication. Do not take these for granted. Again, you need to have a plan for an internet strategy, whether it just be a Facebook page or a LinkedIn account or a colossal website with all the bells and whistles. But you need to have an internet strategy because people are looking. You are exactly who Google and Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube say you are. If you don't have a presence, if people can't Google search you and find you, if people can't find you on LinkedIn, if they can't find you on Facebook, then for all practical purposes in their lives, you don't exist. simple forms of communication that need to be paid attention to, because that is where a lot of people are going to collect the information. They still want to do business with a person, but they're going to use the tools that you allow them to use. And if you ignore those areas, if you don't choose to communicate in those genres, then you could be subject to missing out on an awful lot of business. So I really beg you to think about how the world sees you. When you get that referral, regardless of how it comes to find you, understand that they may Google search you. They may look for you on Facebook. They may look for you on LinkedIn. They may look for you on YouTube. They may look for your company website. More and more of our borrowers are doing a lot more background checking before they ever pick up the phone and speak to a person live. And understand you are what the social media of this world says you are to the people who find that relevant. Now, there are going to be times that you're going to have a referral partner that has such great control over their client that they're going to say, I need you to use Mike White for your mortgage. Here's his card. Give him a call. And they'll just do that. But more and more, people are starting their searches using the internet and other forms of social media because they're not only interested in getting a loan, but they're interested in buying a house, but they're interested in the experience of doing so. What's the experience going to be like working with you? How do I reach you on a number of different levels? So please think long and hard about how you're communicating with your people, because it's invaluable to you to understand how, and it's even more important that your clients and your referral partners understand how. My final thoughts here, I know it's 10 sessions and there's a lot of information, but just remember these. I want to just pass along these thoughts to you because they're important to me and hopefully to you as well. Is you always have to remember to be asking for business. You should be asking for business and sharing your card and who you are with everybody that you come in contact with. The most powerful tool at your possession is the words that come out of your mouth and the business card that you have in your hand. For those of you working with realtors, become your realtor's accountability partner. Make sure that you hold them accountable to what they say that they're going to do. Help them through the process. We have covered that whole business. Each and every one of you has the ability to refer your realtor and help your realtor generate more business than that realtor has the ability to generate business to send to you. It's very powerful tools that you have at your disposal. The things that I have shared with you during the course of this program can help you go a long way in being the one in control of that relationship. You really need to know and set realistic expectations for each client as well as your referral partners. If people come in there and you have a client come in there and a realtor wrote them a contract and they're looking for a 5-day, commitment, and they're looking for a 10-day closing, they're probably in the wrong place. Well, where did this come from? Now, there may be circumstances where sort of that may be things that you've understood and you've been working with it in advance and it has been predetermined that you could accommodate them. But nobody should expect that they get to tell you how and when and why you do your job. So set realistic expectations. Clearly, never accept the flaws of your client or your referral partners. It's not your fault that your client has bad credit. It's not your fault that your client's accountant has taken every conceivable deduction known to man, so their $300,000 in gross income is $15,000 in net adjusted income. Never accept that your referral partners don't provide the comparables to the appraiser. Never accept the fact that your referral partners don't get the condo questionnaire filled out before they list the property. Don't accept the fact that the title company or somebody else has dropped the ball. You don't own that. They do. Do not accept everybody else's flaws. That's not your job. You can help guide them and you can help show them how they overcome these issues. But do not accept them as your challenge. And never commit to the outcome without a specific timeline of action by all parties. Yes, we can close your loan in 21 days if the realtor has to do this, this, and this. The borrower has to do this, this, and this. Here are the things that would have to happen in order to make that possible. And here's the timeline by which we can do those. And understand the last thought here is the biggest mistake that most people make. Why would you ever discuss loan terms with anyone without seeing all their documentation? I've shared with you in the past that prescription without examination and diagnosis is malpractice. Nobody's closing a loan in this market without giving up W-2s, pay stubs, tax returns, and bank statements. Nobody's closing a loan without going through a tri-merge credit report. It's not going to happen. Wouldn't it be much better to explain to the customer up front that they're going to have to supply that documentation regardless of who they go to, and that putting that information together now will make it easier if they work with you or anybody else. They're going to have that information ready. Because in today's marketplace, why wouldn't a buyer be as prepared as possible so that they can negotiate the best possible deal? This is quickly becoming a very strong seller's market. Give them a reason to be the best possible buyer they can be. They'll win more deals that way. You know, I come to this part and I say I have some expectations of you, the clients, the ones that have been through the programs, diligently sat through every one of these sessions, worked on this material, and I expect that you'll email me if you need help. I expect that you will complete any of the unfinished homework that we've talked about here and tried to implement the things that we've put before you. I want you to do one thing at a time, and I want you to get it right before trying to move on to something else. Getting a few things 100% complete is better than getting a lot of things only 10 or 20% complete. I want you to share your successes as well as your challenges with me. If something that I've shared with you works for you, I'd appreciate you letting me know. If something that I've suggested that you do is not working for you well, I want to know that as well. In fact, I probably need to know that even more, because maybe there's something I can do to help you through that. We're going to send over a survey of the course, and I hope that you'll complete it honestly and send it back, because we can only make this better if we get the feedback from the people who are part of the process. For those of you who are part of this program who are working for a manager, they need to know the truth about this program. If you thought this was good, they need to know about it. If you didn't think this was worth your time, well, we all need to know. And last but certainly not least, I want you all to try. Just try. Nothing great was ever accomplished by somebody who said that they can't. I will work with you however long it takes to get you to where you want to go if you will just try. So we're going to conclude this, and I just want to let you know that I think it's very important that you keep yourself in a coaching environment. And whether it's through one of my programs or any of the other programs that are made available to you, I strongly suggest that you look into them. Whether you come to me for a private coaching sessions or you join one of the group programs so that you can stay connected. One of the benefits for as little as $1,000 a year, and in your situation your company pays for half, for $499 a year, you can be part of a program where some of you were on the monthly call yesterday, some of you have been on the lunch and learn sessions, many of you have gone into the client side of the website and have been able to pull out all the data and all the information, all the things that we put there, and go back and listen to all the broadcasts, whether they be the coaching sessions or whether they be the monthly calls or the lunch and learns. You have unlimited access to all of that. It's a very minimal investment. You also have the ability during that process to stay connected to me by email and by phone if necessary. If you have any issues or challenges or specific needs, it's a very small price to pay. I try to make it as affordable as possible so that everybody can stay connected. Or there are other coaching programs that Fairway has subscribed to, and you can find out about those. I don't care who you are or where you are in the world. It helps to have a coach. It helps to have somebody to share your thoughts with and get help from and help keep you disciplined and guided. I'd love to be the person that does that for you, and I think we have a wide variety of programs to help get that done. If not, please look to the other people, because I think you'd be doing a disservice to your professional career if you don't do it. And let's be honest, Fairway thinks it's important enough that you stay in touch with coaching. They see a big enough benefit that they pay for half of it, whether it's me or any other of the coaches that they have in the program. So please, it's been my honor to work with you, and I'd love to continue doing so. If you'd like to try any of the programs, you can just go to the website, or you can email us, and we'll be happy to get you started. I thank you for your time and your commitment to the outcome, and if I can be of any service to you, please let me know. Take care.
The organizer